Hello and welcome to the channel. I appreciate you stopping by for a visit. Today we take a look at my portfolio holdings that are reporting Q2 earnings for week 29, covering July 14th through July 18th. The earnings calendar shows Citigroup reporting on Tuesday, July 15th before the market open. Johnson & Johnson reports on Wednesday, July 16th before the bell. U.S. Bancorp reports on Thursday, July 17th before the market open. For each of these companies, we'll examine the revenue and earnings estimates and the options market implied move. We'll review the current price charts, looking at relative strength and momentum indicators. I'll be interested to read your comments for each of these companies as we await their earnings report. I would also like to know if you hold any of these companies in your stock portfolio. Let's get started. I want to start off with a quick view of the earnings worksheet that I use to track all of the earnings as they come in through the quarter. I have a column here for relative strength, and that just basically gives me a summary of whether that particular company on the technical chart is showing positive relative strength or negative relative strength, as in the case of Tesla. So it just gives me a quick overview. Then we have the ticker, the date that the company is reporting, which calculates the week that it's reporting in, the day of the week, and whether it's before or after the market close. Then the earnings estimate. These will change as we get closer and closer to the earnings release. But once they get reported, then they get locked in along with the actual reported value, whether it was a beat, miss, or in line. And that goes for revenue and also for earnings. So there's an earnings estimate. I'll enter the actual value, whether it was a beat, miss, or in line. And then the date that the initial market reaction will take place. So if it's before the market open, it will be at the market close for that day. If it's after the market close, then it'll be on the next day. I've also calculated the implied move using the options market. So this gives me some indication of what to expect as far as price movement at the options expiration closest to the earnings date. And then I'll enter the price of the company on the close immediately before the earnings announcement. And then I'll track the price initially, and then 1 week later and 2 weeks later. And it gives me some indication for that time frame how the company's performing after they release their earnings. So for this quarter, currently I have a total of 43 that I'll be tracking. I don't necessarily own every single one of these, but pretty close to this number. For instance, Tesla is not one that I actually own at the moment, but it's one that does have market moving implications, so I like to keep an eye on a few of those as we go through. Before we move into the individual company information, let's take a look at the market overall just to see what kind of market that we're operating in. We did hit a high on February the 19th of 6144.15 for the SPX. I put a line at that point, or approximately that point, just to give us an idea where that level is. We can see that after the tariff announcements on April the 2nd and the low on April the 7th, that we have had a very good run upward, and we crossed that point, hitting a high 3 trading days ago. And since that time, we've been on a slight decrease. On Monday, there were additional tariff news that caused the market to drop down, and we had a little bit more downward pressure on pricing yesterday. This is being recorded on July the 9th before the market opens. If we take a look at the RSI, the relative strength indicator, we can see that we were trading above the 70 threshold, indicating we were overbought on the SPX. That has dropped down over the last couple of days below 70. We're currently sitting at 67.73. We can also see that we've had a little bit of decreasing momentum, and we're beginning to roll over where the shorter term moving average crosses below the longer term moving average. If we take a look at the VIX, we can see that it peaked on about April the 7th, getting very high to a level of 52. Since that time, we've had a steady decrease in the VIX, which is also known as the fear gauge. Like to see that trade typically below a level of 20. We are currently sitting at 16.81, indicating moderate volatility. We did have a 50 period crossing below the 200 period average, which is somewhat good news. Citigroup is scheduled to report second quarter earnings on Tuesday, July 15th, before the market open. In the previous quarter, Citigroup reported revenue of $21.6 billion, beating revenue estimates by $308.89 million. Citigroup reported earnings of $1.99 per share, beating estimates by 13 cents. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $20.85 billion, with earnings per share of $1.61 per share. Over the last 90 days, one analyst raised estimates and 14 analysts lowered estimates. Citigroup meets or beats analysts' one-year forward estimates 55% of the time. Citigroup is showing positive relative strength going into the earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of 4.8%. Looking at the Citigroup price chart, we can see that from the April 7th low, we've had a very nice run from about 55 up to 88. Has slowed down pricing action over the last couple of days. We've had 2 down days in a row. As far as RSI, we've been trading in an overbought condition, but we have dipped slightly below the level of 70. We're currently sitting at 66. As far as relative strength, we have reached a level that was above that of around May 19th. So we do have increasing momentum, but that is starting to turn over slightly, but we're still in positive territory. So Citigroup is showing positive relative strength moving into the earnings. Johnson & Johnson is scheduled to report second quarter earnings on Wednesday, July 16th, before the market open. In the previous quarter, J&J reported revenue of $21.89 billion, beating revenue estimates by $331.26 million. J&J reported earnings of $2.77 per share, beating estimates by 19 cents per share. For this quarter, the revenue estimate is $22.87 billion, with earnings of $2.68 per share. Over the last 90 days, 3 analysts raised estimates and 11 analysts lowered estimates. J&J meets or beats analysts' 1-year forward estimates 91% of the time. J&J is showing positive relative strength going into the earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of 3.1%. Since the tariff announcements on April the 2nd and the low on April the 9th or so for J&J, it's been trading pretty much sideways, trading in a range from $144 or so to $157. The RSI is positive. It's currently sitting at 57. And the PPO is showing relative strength and also in positive territory. So overall, Johnson & Johnson is showing positive relative strength moving into the earnings. U.S. Bancorp is scheduled to report second quarter earnings on Thursday, July 17th before the market opens. In the previous quarter, USB reported revenue of $6.96 billion, beating estimates by $51.85 million. USB reported earnings of $1.03 per share, beating estimates by 6 cents per share. For this quarter, USB is expected to report revenue of $7.06 billion, with earnings per share of $1.07 per share. In the last 90 days, 5 analysts have raised estimates and 13 analysts have lowered estimates. USB is showing positive relative strength going into earnings. The options market is pricing an implied move of plus or minus 4.4%. USB, since hitting its low on about April the 7th of $34 per share, traded upwards to 44.5 by the middle of May, then has been trading sideways until about June the 23rd, when it started on a push higher up to the $48 price range. So it is showing some positive relative strength as it moves into the earnings. We can see that the RSI is in an overbought condition at this point, currently sitting at 73. We can also see the PPO indicating momentum has been increasing and in positive territory. Two of the company earnings for my portfolio holdings for the week of 29. If you find this video helpful, I request that you subscribe to the channel for alerts on future videos. I would also appreciate you pressing that like button on the video to help support this channel. Once again, thank you for stopping by. I wish you a great day, and remember to trade well.